And thanks for joining this webinar today. So let's wait maybe a minute for everyone to join. And while we are waiting, can you just let me know where are you joining from? By the way, I'm calling from Zagreb, Croatia. And how about you? If you can send me a message, letting me know which city, which country, just send me a chat message so that I can see where all the attendees can come from. Okay, and while we are waiting your messages, just a couple of notices here. So first, we are recording this webinar, and you'll be able to watch the webinar basically from the same page where you registered for the webinar. So if you registered through YouTube or through LinkedIn, basically the recording will be available on the same page where you registered. Similar with Advisera website, if you register there for the webinar, on the same page you will see also the recording of this webinar. Second thing, you'll be able to download this presentation deck from today in PDF format, and I'll explain you how to download the presentation deck at the end of the webinar. So if you can stick to the end of the webinar, I'll explain you how to do it then. Okay, very well. So let's then proceed. So let's start with the webinar. So welcome to this webinar, what is DORA and how to comply with it. My name is Dejan Kosutic and I'm the main ISO 27001 NIS2 and DORA expert at Advisera. And Advisera is a company that makes compliance easy to understand and simple to use. This webinar today is streamed through LinkedIn, through YouTube, and also through Zoom. And it will last between 45 and 60 minutes, depending on the number of questions you'll have. And by all means, please do send as many questions as you want. And the more questions you send, the more interesting the webinar will be. And you can send the questions during my presentation, so you do not have to wait for the Q&A session. You can send it, as I'm showing you these slides. But of course, you can also ask your questions in the Q&A session, in the questions and answer session at the end of the webinar. Okay, good. Let's move forward. So why is this DORA important? Well, it's important first of all because it's mandatory for financial entities. Some things are also mandatory for these IT suppliers of these financial entities. And also DORA has very strict requirements, and this is something that each financial entity and their IT suppliers, they have to be very careful on what they're doing. So what I'll explain in the webinar today is who needs to comply and also the key steps in this implementation. And the webinar today is basically intended both for financial entities, financial organizations that need to comply with DORA, but also for their IT suppliers to learn what kind of, let's say, requirements are applicable for these suppliers. Okay, good. So as you'll see, one of my main points today is that DORA is very prescriptive, right? It's very detailed. It goes very much into every possible thing on how to define, and it's very prescriptive. And by the way, I also make some let's say kind of a comparison with NIS2 and with ISO 27001, and again, DORA is gone much further than any of these other cybersecurity frameworks. Okay, good. So let's see the agenda for today. And by the way, as I go through these items on the agenda, let me know which of these items you prefer. So just send me a message through chat window, and I'll try to focus the most on these topics that you let me know that are the most interesting for you. So just let me know what you find the most interesting, and then I'll try to spend time on those topics. Anyway, I'll go through some very basics of DORA, also which financial organizations need to comply, so I'll show you this list. Also, what are the steps to comply with DORA? There are something like 18 or so steps that are needed that a financial entity complies with DORA. Then I'll go into these IT suppliers, or they're called ICT suppliers. ICT stands for Information and Communication Technology. and if you can use this standard, cybersecurity standard ISO 27001 for DORA compliance. And finally, at the end, we'll have this questions and answers session. Okay, very well. Let's now go for the basics of DORA. So DORA was published in 2022, so 3 years ago, and it's valid from January 2025. The most important chapters are chapters 2 to 5. Actually, let me share the screen and show you how this looks like in the DORA text. So just give me a second and I'll switch. Okay, I'm showing you now this full text of DORA regulation, and you can find it also here on Advisera website. And we'll send you now the link to this full text of DORA regulation. You can see it now in your chat window. And by the way, if you join the webinar through YouTube or through Zoom, you'll be able to click these links without any problems. If you join the webinar through LinkedIn, then because of some limitations in LinkedIn, you can't click these links directly. What you can do actually as a workaround is simply copy the URL and then paste it into your browser, and you'll be able to open the link. Okay, so let's see this full text of DORA regulation. So what are the most important things here? What are the most important chapters? And you will see here, there are in total 9 chapters. But for financial entities, the most important chapters are 2 to 5, okay? And chapter 2 is about ICT risk management. So basically how you handle this cybersecurity risk. Chapter 3 is about incident management and reporting. Chapter 4 is about digital operational resilience testing. So it's about how you test actually your systems if they're really, well, resilient. And chapter 5 is about how to manage suppliers, ICT suppliers. Now, this webinar today is not intended for me to go through all of these details. For that purpose, I will send you now links to DORA courses. So if you want to learn about all of these things in detail, you can open up these DORA courses that we published on our website. We have 3 courses: DORA Foundations course, DORA Internal Auditor course, DORA Lead Implementer course. All of these courses are free, so you can watch all the videos without any payment, and we charge only for the exam. So if you want to go for the exam, then this is something that we charge for. But if you want to just go through all the videos, this is completely free. So you will see now this link to these courses in the chat window now. Okay, anyway, so this is how DORA looks like. So let's just briefly go through this chapter 2 about ICT risk management. You see here the governance and organization article, ICT risk management framework, ICT systems, protocol and tools, identification, protection and prevention, so on and so forth. When you open any of these articles, you will see, of course, the text of this article. So Article 5, governance organization. So basically here, DORA specifies what the management bodies of financial entities need to do. As you can see, there are quite a lot of things that they need to do. And each and every article of DORA is so precise as this one, as you can see here. Okay, going back to my presentation. Yeah, so as you can see, the focus is on cybersecurity, resilience, and supply chain. Now, what is important is to understand that DORA is not the only regulation that is applicable. DORA has also these regulatory technical standards. So basically, these are kind of appendices to DORA that specify even further what financial entities need to do. And let me just give you an overview of how these CDRs look like. So let me switch to another screen. So basically this is kind of a top-level article on Advisera website. It's called DORA Where to Start. And when you scroll down, you will see lots of articles here, but what I wanted to show you is the official text of all of these regulations. So you will see, besides full text of DORA regulation, you will also see these other RTSs. So this one is CDR 2024-1502, 1773. So again, lots of these regulatory technical standards. We'll send you now this link to this page, DORA where to start, so you can actually go and see for yourself. What I'll show you is this CDR 2024-1774. It's the most detailed one, and for me personally the most interesting one. And this is about regulatory technical standards for specifying ICT risk management tools, methods, processes, policies, and simplified ICT risk management framework. So basically, this is the RTS that is the most focused on cybersecurity. And when we browse very briefly through this through the main things in this RTS, so you see ICT risk management, ICT asset management policy, procedure, encryption, cryptography, ICT operations, capacity, vulnerabilities, data system security, logging, network security, and so on and so forth. So you can see that also human resources, incident detection, business continuity, reporting, and so on. So it's very detailed, and again there are roughly 10 of these RTSs. Each of them is focusing on a different thing. Okay, you can see now in the description, in the comments also the link to this full text of this CDR 1774. What is also worth mentioning is that there is no transposition to local laws in EU countries. So basically, DORA is a regulation, which means that it's applicable directly to financial entities in any European Union country. Unlike NIS2, which is a directive, which means it's not directly applicable, which means that based on NIS2, EU countries have to publish their own laws and regulations. This is not the case with DORA, as it was not the case with GDPR, right? GDPR is also directly applicable to any company, basically in any EU country. Okay, now we'll also share with you now the link to this article, 9 key requirements specified in DORA regulation. So just that you get some kind of overview of what are the main requirements in DORA. Okay, very well. Now let's move on to the next slides, and this is about which companies, which financial organizations need to comply with DORA. And this is almost the whole financial sector in European Union, banks, insurance companies, investment firms, and so on and so forth. Actually, I'll show you now a list. Let me share the screen again about this. This article is called "Who Must Comply with DORA Regulation." We'll also share now the link to this article with you. And when you scroll down here, you will see, the list of all these financial entities that need to comply. As you can see, there are some others which are not strictly, not kind of financial organizations. It's like, credit rating agencies or crowdfunding service providers, securitization repositories, all of them actually have to comply with DORA. So I'll open this link, and you'll find this list on which financial entities need to comply. There are some exceptions, for example, leasing companies, very small insurance companies, some special financial organizations like export banks. These kind of organizations are typically excluded from DORA, from the DORA scope. Now, it's interesting that DORA requirements are not equally applicable to the different types of financial entities. You could have these, let's say, normal, so to say, normal financial entities, even though this term normal is not used in DORA itself. This is, let's say, my kind of keyword for this. And then there are special requirements for smaller financial entities, and then there are special requirements for these micro financial entities. So let me actually show you how this looks like. So I'll share again with the screen another article. So this article is called List of Documents Required by DORA Regulation, and basically what it does, it shows each and every requirement from DORA, and it suggests you which kind of document you can use to comply with this particular requirement. So when you click Show All Documents, you will see a very lengthy list here, since there are many requirements, many items here. But the one I wanted to show you is basically, each of these requirements is focused on particular types of financial entities. So as you can see, this one is here applicable to all financial entities except smaller financial entities. Okay. Now, which are these smaller financial entities? When you scroll a little bit up, then you see an explanation. Smaller financial entities are the following entities. And then you can see here a specific, the specification for smaller financial entities. And basically then DORA says that smaller financial entities have to comply with this simplified risk management framework according to Article 16, right? So again, when we scroll down here, you will see this is Article 5, and this is not applicable to smaller financial entities because smaller financial entities have to go after Article 16, not to these Articles 5 to 15. Okay, let's see some other examples. So, establish a role to monitor arrangements concluded with ICT third-party service providers. This is Article 5.3, and this is valid for all except smaller and micro enterprises. So, my point here was just that not each and every DORA article is applicable to all financial entities in the scope. There are some, let's say, differences in these things. So when you read DORA, text of DORA, be careful to interpret this properly. Okay, you'll see also the link to this article in the chat window, so you'll be able to see everything written here. Okay, going back to my presentation. Good. Now, let's move on to the next slide. So let's speak a little bit about these compliance steps. So if your financial entity is not already compliant with DORA, which it should be already, I mean, January is already passed, so the deadline is already passed, but let's say that you are not sure if you did everything. So this is a kind of a logical list on what you have to do to comply with DORA. And just to mention, this is not really valid for these IT suppliers. I'll explain I would say specific rules for IT suppliers in maybe in the second half of the webinar. So this here is only applicable to financial entities, but not to IT suppliers. So what I would suggest is that each financial entity that needs to comply with DORA to start with really with the gap analysis to see how far or how close they are to being compliant, so that the rest of the steps are kind of calibrated towards this size of the gap that you have. And by the way, there is also an article which describes all of these 18 steps. So we'll share this link to this article now so that you can open the article and read these steps, later on. Anyway, the next step is this to obtain the senior management support. Very often, if the senior management does not appreciate, the importance of what you're doing, then you might run into problem. You need to set up, project management. So you need to define who is the project manager, who is the project sponsor, project team, these kind of things. And then you should perform some initial training, and this training is basically necessary, I would say, at least for the project team, partially also for the senior management. And you will see later on one of the steps is also to start performing this continuous training. But in the beginning, I think it's important to let's say train let's say a group that is focused the most on this DORA compliance project. And what I'll share now with you is an example on how you can do it. So we have this product called Company Training Academy, which actually enables you to organize training not for one person. So these are not courses, rather these are videos. So these are trainings that are intended for a company-wide training or for a group of people. So I'll just show you briefly how this works. So when you want to set up a new training, you simply select a framework, let's say it's DORA, and then it already suggests for which type of audience you need this. So let's say that you want this for the members of the project team. Click continue. Then you define which country you're in, because there are also some specific videos for particular countries. You define the language, click continue. And then it already suggests you, several videos which are, let's say, in this case, relevant for awareness raising, but also you will see now several videos that are important for DORA itself. So, what is DORA? Who needs to comply? Which IT suppliers need to comply, and so on. And these are basically, videos which are up to 5 minutes. So between 3 and 5 minutes in most cases. So they're not too long. They're rather easy to digest. And you also see the references what these videos cover. Anyway, when I move forward, then when you click continue, you simply define how often you want these people to watch this. I don't know, 1 lesson per day, or I don't know, let's say you want 2 lessons per week, let's say on Thursday, something like this. And then you click continue, and then you add email addresses of these people that should be attending this training. And then once you click start, then they start receiving these email notifications, and then they have to see this video in the sequence that was being sent through this cybersecurity training platform. So I don't want to spend any more time on this, but this is, let's say, one of the options on how you can organize training either for a smaller group of people in your company or basically for your whole financial organization. Okay, going back to presentation. So this is the initial training. And then you should define this governance and senior management role. So basically, who is responsible for which things? What is the senior management responsible for? What is the, let's say, security officer responsible for, and so on. And then you have to define this risk assessment methodology. So define the rules on how you're going to perform the risk assessment. And then go into this asset identification, risk assessment and treatment. So listing all the assets and then finding out, what kind of threats and vulnerabilities you have, what is the impact, what is the likelihood. So this is when this is what you do in this step. And then after that, you have to define this digital operational resilience strategy. This is a concept that is kind of new. You can't really find it in ISO 27001 or NIS2. Actually, there is up to a point a parallel kind of concept in ISO 27001. This is called risk treatment plan. But this digital operational resilience strategy is much more detailed, much more specified from DORA. So I couldn't really say that it's equal to risk treatment plan, because it's much more. Now let me share the screen and show you very briefly how this document could look like. So let's say this is the first page, change history, table of contents. So let me just go briefly here. So digital operational resilience direction, support of the business strategy, risk tolerance level, information security objectives, then the inputs for this strategy, current digital operational resilience situation, ICT infrastructure, plan changes, risk management, business impact analysis, managing incidents and crisis communication, recovery strategy for major incidents. So most of these things are actually defined by DORA itself and by this CDR 2024-1774. So except for, let me see, except for this section 6, most of these things are required by DORA and this CDR. So let me just briefly show you the text, how this looks like. So this is the digital operational resilience direction, so support, risk tolerance, information security objectives, and so on. So again, this is only a template that we use, like this DORA toolkit, but of course you can create these documents according to your needs. Okay, then you need to implement cybersecurity measures, and you'll probably have I don't know, 10, 20 or so documents that are needed for that purpose, like backup policy, access control policy, managing capacity of your IT operations, and so on and so forth. So it could be pretty detailed. Then you also have to implement your business continuity measures. So I can show you, for example, the business continuity plan. Let me just switch the screen. So business continuity plan. Okay, let's see the table of contents. So the content, assumptions, appointments, authorities, activation, deactivation, communication, sites and transportation, and so on. Let's just dive in how this looks like. You can see also the references here, right? So DORA, CDR 7074, ISO 22301, this is a business continuity standard, ISO 27001, this is cybersecurity standard. So what is basically the content of the plan? Not only the business continuity plan, but also these appendices. Some assumptions, appointments, authorities, how it is activated, deactivated, how you communicate. Typically you would have a separate crisis management plan, and so on. So again, this is something that you would have as a document. And by the way, we actually have a separate product for this. It's called DORA Documentation Toolkit. And if you're interested in these templates, you'll see a link now in this in the chat window. So and you can also sign up for a free trial. So there is a free trial of this DORA documentation toolkit, and you'll be able actually to download demo versions of these documents when you sign up for this free trial. Okay, then you have to define how you're going to manage your third parties. So typically this is done through a supplier security policy, but also some other documents. Because if you remember when I was showing, there is a whole chapter dedicated in DORA for managing this ICT third-party risk, and this has to be done very, very carefully, I would say very much in detail. And then comes this regular cybersecurity training. So basically DORA requires you to define that you actually train not only your senior management, but also your whole workforce, your all employees within the financial entity. But not only this, actually it also requires you to train your IT suppliers, okay? And we'll share actually now with you a link to an article. So the article is called How to Organize this DORA Training and Awareness, and you'll find more details there. But in any case, you can use, I don't know, some kind of a training platform like this company training academy or some other way of training. But in any case, you need to actually find a way to organize this training company-wide. Good. The next step is to define how you're going to handle incidents and threats. What is your internal process of, basically reporting these incidents and threats, how you classify them, and then how you report them to authorities if this is about larger incidents. And then you have to define this digital operational resilience testing. So if you need to define the methodology on how you actually test your systems, how you test your processes, that you can actually really react to, I would say, incidents in a, I would say, appropriate way. And part of this is also this threat-led penetration testing, which is mandatory to perform every 3 years. So this is mandatory for all financial entities. And then you need to set up this measurement monitoring reviews. So basically, I would say a systematic way for a financial entity to track everything that was needed, everything that is happening with cybersecurity, because ultimately the senior management that is basically responsible for everything within financial entity, including cybersecurity, senior management cannot really handle cybersecurity if it doesn't have really all the information, and this is done really through this measurement monitoring reviews. Of course, performing internal audits, this is something that is already, I would say, a normal thing in financial entities. Doing this management review, where the management collects all this information and makes crucial decisions. and then finally doing these follow-up actions and corrective measures. So basically all of these things, all of these 18 steps that I was showing you are kind of an well, high-level overview, but still all the things that you should be doing to be fully compliant with DORA. And we also prepared one white paper that is called Comprehensive Guide to DORA Regulation, which kind of summarizes, you know, all of these things that I was mentioning and that I was showing. So if you want to, you know, download this PDF document called this Comprehensive Guide to DORA, you can click this link that we share now with you through this through chat. Okay, so all of these things up to now were applicable to financial entities. Now let's see what the ICT suppliers or IT suppliers of financial entities, what do they have to do? And the question is here, do they have to be compliant with DORA? So let me go now into this. So first of all, DORA defines that ICT supplier or service provider is any company providing digital and data services through ICT systems, okay? And it's specified in this Article 3 of DORA. So if you are, I don't know, an IT company that develops software for a financial entity, if you are a cloud provider to a financial entity, if you are a telecom provider to a financial entity, even if you are providing some kind of hardware services to a financial entity on a continuous basis, even then you are also considered to be ICT supplier. And the question is now, what these ICT suppliers need to be compliant with. So DORA says that ICT suppliers, all ICT suppliers of financial entities, need to comply with security standards. Now, it doesn't say which security standards, so each financial entity needs to define what are these security standards, but ultimately it will basically come down to either ISO 27001, because it's the most popular international cybersecurity standard, or some standards according to this European Cybersecurity Certification Scheme. So this European Cybersecurity Certification Scheme is a scheme run by ENISA. ENISA is a European Cybersecurity Agency, and they also have some programs and certifications which probably will be relevant in the future, not only for DORA suppliers, but also for NIS2, for companies that are suppliers to NIS2. So infrastructure companies need to be compliant with the NIS2, and the suppliers to these infrastructure companies will probably also have to be compliant with these cybersecurity scheme standards from ENISA. Okay, this is one thing. Second thing is that these ICT suppliers will have to be compliant with contractual obligations. And DORA specifies what are these contractual obligations that financial entities need to include in the contracts with suppliers, and that these ICT suppliers need to go through awareness and training, which is specified in Article 13.6. So what does this mean? This means that these ICT suppliers do not need to be compliant directly with DORA. So if you remember, there are these chapters 2, 3, 4, and 5. However, they have to be compliant with some security standards, with contractual obligations, and awareness and training. So in other words, DORA doesn't specify what exactly the ICT suppliers need to be compliant with, but it somehow defines the rules of the game. So it, for example, defines that these financial entities themselves have to define which kind of training and awareness programs these ICT suppliers need to go through. So not directly to DORA, but I would say they have to play according to what financial entities define for these ICT suppliers. Okay, we'll also share now with a link with you to this article called "Which IT Companies Need to Comply with DORA and How." So this is this article, lists all of these things in more detail. So if you are acting as an ICT supplier, then this article will be interesting for you. Okay, to continue the story about ICT suppliers, there I would say regular ICT suppliers which have to comply with what I've shown in the slide in the previous slide, but there are also these critical ICT suppliers which are handled with even more strict requirements. And this critical ICT service provider is defined in Article 31. So let me just switch to this article and show you. So this is basically the article that I mentioned, which IT entities need to comply with DORA and how. And now let's see what is defined as a critical ICT suppliers. So what are critical ICT suppliers? And basically it's, this is a ICT third-party service provider that has systemic impact on the stability, continuity, and quality of the provision of financial services, the systemic character of importance of the financial entities that rely on the relevant third-party service providers, and so on. So you get the picture on how these critical ICT suppliers are determined. Interestingly enough, the critical ICT service providers are not defined by financial entities. Rather, they are defined by these European supervisory authorities, or ESAs. So basically, these are the Central Banking Authority, the Central Authority for insurance companies, and so on. So basically, it's defined by these regulatory agencies, and they actually define who is critical and who is not. And there is this separate regulatory technical standard 1502, which defines the criteria in more detail. Now the question is what these critical ICT suppliers need to do, right? And you will see here a very brief kind of overview of what they need to do. First of all, they need to be supervised by a so-called lead overseer. Lead overseer is basically a government agency that oversees what these critical ICT suppliers do. Now, until now, only the financial entities were under direct supervision, right? They had these authorities which kind of closely monitored what financial entities were doing, but now the same actually, or similar concept is applied also to these critical ICT suppliers. Also need these additional contractual obligations, so even more contractual obligations are specified according to DORA. Also, non-European suppliers are, I would say, more closely described, and more authority is given to these lead overseers and to these financial authorities. And there is also very clear definition of fines and penalties for these critical ICT suppliers. I think something like up to 1 or 2% of the revenue, or maybe more. I'm not sure exactly about this, but it's also pretty strict for these ICT service providers. If you want to learn more, again, go to this article, which IT companies need to comply with DORA and how, because it lists in more detail, all these requirements for critical ICT suppliers. So if you are a critical ICT supplier, then you actually have to, I would say, pay even closer attention to these and make sure that you're compliant. So the question is really, if you're a regular ICT supplier or if you're a critical ICT supplier, how should you approach? In this case, these 18 steps that I was showing for DORA compliance are not really relevant for you. A much more, I would say, appropriate approach would actually be that you follow ISO 27001 as a standard, because ultimately you will have to comply at least with one standard, and most likely that one standard will be ISO 27001. Now, I have a separate webinar for ISO 27001, so I'm not going to go through the details of ISO 27001 implementation here, but we'll share now with you a link to this article which explains the steps in ISO 27001 implementation. It's called something like a big guide to ISO 27001. Okay, you can see it in the chat window now. Okay, very well. Now, let's move on to this mapping between ISO 27001 and DORA, because this is very often a question. And I mean, I have to disappoint you here. There's not much mapping that you can do. You'll see the mapping in the next slide, but first, let me explain you that DORA and these RTSs, as you can see, they're much more prescriptive than NIS2, for example. NIS2 is this directive for critical infrastructure companies. Also, DORA and RTSs are much more detailed than the requirement in ISO 27001. And DORA does not mention 27001 as an obligation, right? So even though that I really like ISO 27001, I can't say that it's really of a huge help for DORA, because again, DORA is simply much more prescriptive. Now, you could use 27001 at least to help you at least a little bit with DORA, and I'll show you now this in this slide how you could do it. So I would say that what's good about ISO 27001, it gives you, I would say, a holistic picture on how to manage security, or it gives you a holistic picture of cybersecurity governance. And it does so through this plan, do, check, and act cycle. So if you're not from this ISO world, then let me briefly explain you what does this mean. PDCA, or plan, do, check, and act cycle, means that first you have to plan something before you actually do it, if you want to do it right. Once you plan this, then you actually go for this do phase, the implementation phase. Then you have to go for a check phase, where you're continuously checking if you are achieving the things that you planned for. And then finally you go for this act phase, where you actually correct everything that was not good enough. Okay. And this plan, do, act, and check, these cycles are actually, these activities are continuously in a cycle, so that you are, I would say, achieving this continual improvement. So, this kind of systematic thinking is very good if you have to kind of put the pieces, various pieces from DORA in some let's say, meaningful framework. And I've actually done this here in this table. So in ISO 27001, you have these clauses 4, 5, 6, and 7, which are about planning. And corresponding articles in DORA are articles 5, 6, and 8, right? Then you have these clauses, clause 8, operations, and Annex A, security controls. This is the do phase, implementation phase. And then you have these corresponding articles and chapters here in DORA. And then you have this check and act, clauses 9 and 10, and also this DORA, learning and evolving. So if you kind of organize your governance with ISO 27001 and PDCA in mind, you will find it much easier to handle DORA as well. So this is where I find ISO 27001 useful for DORA, I would say in some kind of a global picture rather than in details. Again, details are in DORA because it's much more prescriptive. So I'm not sure if this makes sense for you or not, but this is what I came up with. Anyway, I think this is basically it. So let's, and yes, again, just to emphasize, so DORA has to be implemented according to its own, I would say, logic in financial entities. If you're an ICT supplier, then you should probably go directly with 27001. So it's, I would say, two very different approaches for implementation. Okay, very well. Now let's move on to the next slide. It's about the biggest challenges with DORA. And these are the questions I often receive around DORA, and let me go through them just to give you an idea of what people are typically asking. So one question is, we have multiple frameworks we adhere to, ISO 27001, 9001, TISAX, and DORA, and the challenge here is really to kind of align all of these things. Now, since TISAX is mentioned, TISAX is a kind of cybersecurity standard for automotive industry. So I assume that this challenge actually came from a company that is from the automotive industry. Now, if this is so, then this company does not need to be compliant with DORA because it's not a financial entity, right? It might be a supplier to a financial entity, but not the financial entity. So the point being here is that I would say that most likely the company does not need to be compliant with DORA as well. What does this mean? If you're a financial entity, you need to be compliant with DORA and these RTSs. You do not have to be compliant with NIS 2001, nor with 9001, nor with anything else. If you're a supplier, okay, you can be compliant with 27001, with 9001, with TISAX, but you do not have to be compliant with DORA. So there are very, I would say, extremely rare cases where you have to be compliant with both DORA and with all of these other frameworks. It's in practice, it's very, very rare situation. Okay, second challenge was how businesses outside of EU have to handle DORA regulation. So if you are a financial entity and if you have your daughter company or a subsidiary within, so let's say that you're based in the US and you have your, I don't know, daughter company, let's say that you have your bank as a subsidiary in, let's say, France. In this case, this subsidiary needs to be compliant with DORA, but your US headquarters does not need to be compliant with DORA because it's outside of the jurisdiction. So, but everything that this subsidiary in Paris, in France, does, it needs to be compliant fully with DORA. And basically, this is how this works, right? Okay, another challenge was managing the complexity of compliance, especially regarding third-party risk management, strict incident reporting, resource allocation, and so on. So it's I mean, a challenge that is you know, not only I would say typical for DORA, but also for NIS2 or for ISO 27001. And the best way, especially for DORA, is, you know, simply to go through each of these requirements and set very clear policies and procedures on how you actually handle this. So there are very strict requirements on how you need to handle incidents, especially how you need to handle these ICT third-party service providers. So again, you have to read these appropriate chapters and then make sure that all of these rules are described in your policies and procedures. This is one thing. Second thing is that you have to train your employees on how this needs to be implemented. So again, you can use our products, I mean our documentation toolkit for handling policies and procedures, our company training academy for training your employees, or you can use some others. But these types of tools are basically the best way to you know, achieve this. Okay, another challenge, identifying what policies and procedures we need. Well, I would say that you need to document basically every requirement from DORA because it's very hard, you know, when requirements are so detailed, then it's better to actually have them written down. Because otherwise, you know, if you don't cover each and every requirement in your own policies and procedures, it's very easy to kind of simply forget about them. And this is better to have them documented. So again, go document, I mean, go each requirement at a time, each article in DORA at a time, and make sure that they're included in your policies and procedures. Okay, a challenge also, only entering into agreements with ICT service providers that meet adequate security standards. So again, as of currently, there is no specification on which security standards are acceptable. It might happen in the future. I can't really tell for sure. But again, if you require your suppliers to comply with ISO 27001, I'm sure that you are not going to do anything that you're not going to miss, because again, 27001 is the biggest, the most popular, and the most accepted international cybersecurity standard. So you can't really miss if this is the standard that you require of your suppliers. All right. Yeah, let me go to our short conclusion, and then after that we'll go for the Q&A session. So I would say, you know, if you plan this whole compliance path properly, then DORA actually can be implemented. I would say not very. I wouldn't say easily, but smoothly. Certainly smoothly than you probably expected. So it's something that it's a matter of planning, right? If you plan this properly, if you do not go into this without clear steps in mind, then this will be certainly easier for you. Okay, again, for that purpose you can use our DORA documentation toolkit, our DORA training and awareness through Company Training Academy, and you can also schedule a call with our product experts. And you can actually ask this colleague of ours to actually show you how these products work. So you'll see now the link also in the chat window. Again, you can choose whether you want to go through free trials yourself of these products, or if you want a demo from our product expert. So it's up to you to decide, how you want to test these things out. Good. Now let me go for the Q&A session. And so if you have any questions, please do send them through the chat window, and I'll answer them in this Q&A session. And while you're sending these questions, let me just go through a couple of announcements. First of all, feel free to ask me directly any question. And basically we'll send you my email now. So if you want to ask a question directly, you can do it also through email. Second, you can follow me on LinkedIn and YouTube. So on LinkedIn, I publish regularly news from this cybersecurity and compliance world. So if you want to kind of stay up to date, start following me on LinkedIn. And on YouTube, I publish regularly videos on DORA and NIS2 and ISO 27001. So if you want to learn through this video format, then I recommend that you can actually follow this YouTube channel. I also have this Secure and Simple podcast. This podcast is specifically oriented towards consultants and CISOs, so virtual CISOs. So if you want to learn how to become a successful consultant and CISO, then this Secure and Simple podcast it could be interesting for you. You also have the link now in this chat window. Finally, let me tell you about my next webinar. So my next webinar will be next week, next Wednesday at the same time. And it will be about, it will be focused on consultants, and it will explain, how actually to ensure that you will have continuous, regular, recurring revenue from clients. So I'll give you some insights and tips on how to achieve this recurring revenue from clients. So if you're interested in consulting and in, let's say, perhaps changing your business model, then this webinar could be interesting for you. And you also see you'll see now the links for signing up for my upcoming webinars. Good. Now let's see if there are any questions coming in. Okay, I don't see any questions. Yeah. Okay. Good. Then let's wrap up the webinar. Yeah, just a few words before we finish. So as I mentioned, this 1 hour webinar was too short really to go into details like for each and every requirement or control or document. So for that purpose, please do check these DORA courses, but also these other products that we shared with you. And yeah, regarding this PDF presentation deck, we'll publish this PDF presentation deck in about 10 minutes. And you will be able to see it on the same page where you're watching the webinar now. So if you joined through LinkedIn or if you joined through YouTube, then keep this page open. And after about 10 minutes in the comment section, you will see a link to download this PDF presentation deck. If you join the webinar through Zoom, then we'll send you this PDF presentation deck through email latest by tomorrow morning. And also on LinkedIn and YouTube, we'll publish also in this comment section, we'll publish all the links that we shared today. So if you missed any of these links that we shared during the webinar, then you can also take a look at these links in this comment section that, again, we'll update in about 10 minutes. And this would be all. Thank you very much for your participation, and I hope